Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, where we got some actually really big news. The Summon Rush event kicking off this weekend is actually going to be, well, it's coming in with a bang. Let me tell you, we have a guaranteed Void Epic up for grabs during this Summon Rush, plus a bunch of champions boosted in a 10x event. Really strong champions, actually. For me, I think it's pretty surprising. This is one of the best fusions we've ever had. You could sort of expect Plarium might skimp on this event, make it pretty bad, but seeing as a lot of people are going to be pulling to get fragments for this champion, there's some good champs up for grabs. Usually I don't recommend 10x events really at all, but if you got to pull, you got to pull. And like I said, the guaranteed and everything else all coming together, there's a lot going on here. Let me break down the 10x event first. Also, actually, before I dive into that, just to let you guys know, I'll of course be pulling my own shards for the Summon Rush tomorrow. When it goes live, we'll actually see how many points you need to get. I'll be pulling my shards, so you can just have fun seeing what I get. And also, I'll try to give you guys some tips and break it down in that one. When we see the points, I'll let you know how good, how bad it is. And yeah, what sort of shard combos might be worth pulling. But yeah, let's talk about these 10x event champions. So first of all, in the epics, the general theme of this, funny enough, is actually block debuffs. Is the theme of this 10x. Extremely useful buff to protect you from all those debuffs. I'd say it's funny because Pythion himself is one of the best block debuff champions. So if you're going to be getting Pythion, it's perhaps not as urgent to get some of these, but they're really, really strong nonetheless. Sepulchre Sentinel, first one up for grabs. Great champion, particularly good for Demon Lord Clan Boss in killable teams. Really strong for that. She's also quite good against some of the Doom Tower bosses as well. Like, for example, I think her passive is very strong for Magma Dragon, keeping champions alive when you struggle. And like, let's say you get into Doom Tower hard and Magma Dragon's actually kind of tough maybe at the start to keep the champions who provoke alive. With her passive, it gives you a 50-50 once per turn that she takes to fully block a single hit, right? So against Magma Dragon, who does a big single hit, she can completely block it, which is very cool. Increase defense block debuffs on your whole team on a 4-turn cooldown, and then decrease attack A1. So the decreased attack, obviously against Clan Boss, Magma Dragon, that sort of thing, super useful. This protects you against the stun attack very well from Clan Boss. The block debuffs blocks the stun. It can block the affinity Clan Boss debuffs as well, particularly decreased speed, which will throw off your speed comp. Great champion, really strong. Really, really like her. Next up, we got another champion. I think he is Undead. Or was he back? No, yeah, he is. Okay, good. Mausoleum Mage comes up next. A really underrated champion as well. I didn't pull one for ages, so I never built him. So he's one I kind of tend to forget, but a really strong champion. He comes in. He has a full team cleanse with a big heal. It can heal extra for every debuff. If there's enough debuffs removed from an ally, it can fill turn meter if he removes more debuffs. So he's got a nice heal with a cleanse. Very cool. Then he has increased crit rate, increased defense, and block debuffs for 1 turn. On a 3-turn cooldown is A1 the decreased speed. Again, really solid champion, right? Boosting your team, protecting your team, and then also cleansing them and healing them. It's a really strong combo that is very universally useful during progression, right? In Arena, it's great. Against so many Doom Tower bosses, dungeon bosses you're progressing on, it's fantastic. Works pretty well with Seer because he provides 3 buffs for Seer to rip off even. So a great champion kind of throughout the game. Another one that we've got coming up is a champion that was really underrated for a while. I'm going to be honest with you. This guy came into some Sand Devil teams. I'm going to be honest, though. I don't actually know why or how that works because I didn't have the other champions you need to make that team. So I didn't really look into it, just to be completely frank. I'm not even fully sure what he does, but block debuffs, increase defense, I guess. He does healing and shielding. We can extend random buff on a random... I don't know why this guy was essential for that Sand Devil team, but there you go. I think outside of that, he's a decent support, right? A heal with a shield. He's got these buffs. He kind of alternates, which is interesting. A decent champion, decent support, useful for faction wars and the secret room. But yeah, I guess Sand Devil, but you might need specific champions, so I'm not really sure how. Now, the Void Epic champion, not the guaranteed one, but the one in the 10x, is an extremely good one for a 10x event, and that's none other than Maneater. For early or mid-game players, this is potentially game-changing. It could potentially be worth the risk to pull some Void shards here. Maybe. Of course, by pulling outside of a 2x event, you are going to lose out on lots of epic champions, just in general, right? You're going to have half the chance to get epics as you would in a 2x event. So you're going to get less epics, but Maneater with Ancient Blood, it is a game changer, right? Unkillable and block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. Of course, the big deal is that you combo him with a Painkeeper, and you can build a budget unkillable team. You can get into Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss with Maneater, a Painkeeper who's a Void Rare, and then just some random other champions. It's quite easy to build. Well, it's not quite easy. It's a difficult team to build. It's a difficult team to tune. Don't get me wrong. There's a good bit of work in it. You're going to need some decent gear as well to hit the speeds required. But it's probably the easiest way, one of the easiest ways to get into Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss. It's a huge deal. So he's very much a game changer. So might not be a terrible idea, especially if you haven't pulled an epic. If you're close to Epic Mercy for Void Shards, your early game, not a bad one to pull for. One of the only 10x events I'd ever consider pulling for an epic as a newer player, because it could completely change your game. You could also waste a bunch of Void Shards, of course. He's a great champion also in general. He can fully steal a turn meter, which is very useful, again, for some progression stuff. And he's great for faction wars, of course. So, yeah, great series of epics. We come to the legendaries that are boosted. First up, she was a guaranteed champion for 20 Sacred Shards. It's Elva Autumnborn. Unique at the time with the remove debuff and then placing block debuffs on your team. Of course, now we've got Pythion, the current fusion. He comes in, he does the same thing. Now, he does a bit of a heal. She puts increased speed out. I think her version is better overall, but I mean, they're fairly comparable moves. But yeah, this was really unique at the time. Pythion snuck in very quickly after. So it was one of those things. She's a great champion, though. Great defensive stat. Just great stats across the board. Nice passive, pumping out lots of healing. She pumps out good healing with her A1. She'll do a lot more healing than Pythion, and she brings the increased speed. But she only has a single target revive, whereas Pythion has the AoE revive. They're actually, in my opinion, they're reasonably similar champions. I think for Hydra specifically, I do think Elva is slightly better, specifically because she does more healing and she does bring a bit of Perfect Veil, which is actually quite useful, especially with champions like Krisk in particular. I would say she combos well with, and the Speed Aura is really nice for the Hydra. But good champion. Definitely would not be disappointed if you pull, well, unless you had her already, I suppose, but great champion, Elva. Brogni is next up. Also a contender for best fusion ever. Of course, Brogni, completely nuts. Block debuffs, increase attack, and a big shield. The shield will reflect damage. The shield will heal your allies when they take damage. He can grow the shield, make the shield bigger with his A2. He's got a burn on the A1 as well. Brogni is just amazing. He is so useful. Great champion even for Arena, and great against so many Doom Tower bosses. Keeping your champs alive with the shield, reflecting the damage. He can do a lot of damage to bosses with it's Giant Slayer with Brogni because of the reflection, right? It's Giant Slayer or War Master. I can't remember. It's been literally so long since I've talked about Brogni properly. One of the two. Let's go check. What do we put on Brogni? I think it's Giant Slayer. Hang on. He's in here somewhere. Let's get this right for the video. Let's not mislead people. It's Giant Slayer. Okay, you put Giant Slayer on Brogni. I have him in a bolster set. He's good in a shield set. Lots of ways you can do Brogni. Great champion. And then, still one of my most wanted champions, it's the Duchess Lilitu in the 10x as well. What needs to be said, she's very similar. Again, quite similar to Pythion, really. I do think that she is a better champion overall than Pythion. But I mean, I would say Duchess is probably like the best champion you could pull from Ancients or Sacreds just in general, for progression and just late game and everything. So, you know, she's a tough one to beat. But yeah, she's fantastic, right? The difference between her and Pythion, she has the longer cooldown here and on the revive as well. No, sorry, her revive's the same. Longer cooldown on the block debuffs, but she does bring Perfect Veil. She brings Veil with this. The damage reduction is a bit more straightforward. Speed Aura. So, you know, great champion for Hydra. Especially because she brings the Veil. You combo her with someone like a Krisk who extends the buff, and you basically deal with the Head of Torment with her, which is something that Pythion can't do, right? But she's obviously amazing. And then finally, the Void Legendary. And stay tuned for the guaranteed Legendary after, but the Void Legendary coming in is Riho Bonespear. She was the first actually guaranteed champion for Void Shards for, was it 90? I think it was 90 Void Shards. Again, a great champ. She comes in with a full team cleanse with block debuffs and a really, really, really big heal. Then, of course, her A2 has really become exceptional. It's a great move. Really came into its own for the Sand Devil. She puts out so many debuffs with this A2 that it just disables all that Sand Devil damage reduction and lets you get your damage out. So Riho, I think, is a fantastic champ as well. Yeah, I don't know. I probably wouldn't, again, recommend pulling in a 10x for her, but if she popped out of a Void Shard this weekend for you, you should be really happy. She's a great champion. I definitely want to get her myself. I'm sad I wasn't able to do her guaranteed event. So those are the 10x champions. I think on the whole, it's a great set. It's a great set. I think the epics for early mid-game players are all extremely helpful for faction wars, for progressing in Doom Tower, for progressing in Clan Boss. So yeah, I think the epic champions, which you've got a moderate chance to get, pulling the necessary shards to get the fragments for this fusion, looking pretty juicy. The legendaries are all incredibly good. Obviously, your chances to get them are fairly poor. It's a 10x. Don't get baited in to wasting your shards during a 10x event. But if you do happen to pull one of the legendaries, and it does happen to be one of them, again, you got what, about 20% chance or something that is one of the 10x champs. It's not a great chance, but if it is one, they're all amazing. So you'd be really happy. Now, the guaranteed champion, I do have a video on, and it's the newest Void Epic. It's a Chemtum. I think that's how you say the name. I was saying it wrong before, I think, but a Chemtum flows pretty well. But this cheeky cat is actually a really cool champ. I should have a card up in the corner where you can go and watch the video I did with YST, where we looked at this champion, talked about it, did a showcase. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on with this champ. First of all, let's go to the A2 first, actually. It's a 3-turn cooldown AoE. That's a triple hitter. Triple hitter AoE. His A1 is also a single target triple hitter. So you put this champion with Giant Slayer, and he's going to be pumping out the Giant Slayer damage from the Masteries really effectively. Every hit has let's talk about it booked, a 75% chance to place Hex, and then also to extend Hex as well. This is, I think, especially good for Hydra, where Hex is so strong, replicating the damage across the different heads, especially if you start hitting a decapitated head, which takes bonus damage. You replicate that across. It adds up. It does. And of course, Hex lets you target the Head of Mischief. And because he's putting this out, he's almost definitely going to get it. Every hit, 75% chance. It's not a 100% chance, but it's pretty darn close that he's going to get that Hex debuff out. And there's even a pretty good chance he's going to extend it too. He'll have very good uptime on Hex, on Head of Mischief, which will enable you to target that head down, take it out, which is so helpful, especially whenever he devours a champion. It's one of the biggest problems for newer players. This guy's very good for dealing with it. Now, his A1 can put poisons, and also if the target's under Hex, it will do debuff spread, taking a debuff from the target and putting it on all enemies. Really helpful as well in Hydra when you've got different affinities for different heads. Take that HP burn that you weren't able to put on a head because you weak hit that head, spread it across. Spread the HP burn onto a head that's been protected by Poison Cloud. Spread decreased defense, spread block buffs. These really useful debuffs, decrease speed, that you might have difficulty getting up on all of the heads. He can help you make those more consistent, which is good. It's each hit 50% chance, so it's not crazy consistent, but it happens enough that you will notice it. It's quite nice. And then, really interesting passive as well, 100% chance when booked to inflict damage from one poison debuff to enemies under Hex whenever their allies receive damage from poison. Not 100% sure how this works exactly. It's a weird one, and it's difficult to tell. I'd say HH Gaming Saphira, by data mining the code and stuff, will be able to figure out exactly how this works. We did some testing on it, actually a decent amount of testing in the video I did, and it's difficult to tell without having the code, because there's literally so much text that pops up when this happens. It's just hard to see. This does a significant amount of damage, though. You would be surprised. Slight spoiler for the video, but we found in the run that I did, he did phenomenal damage. He did about the same damage as a Sissia Flame Tongue, which is saying something for Hydra. She's one of the best damage dealers. So he did a lot of damage, very nice, and he does bring in a Speed Aura. It's not the absolute best, but it's pretty darn good. It's tiny bit worse than Duchess Speed Aura. It's pretty darn good. So yeah, this champion is fantastic. I think he's very good. However, he will cost you 40 void shards. 40. That's a lot. To put it in context of what you're going to miss out on, if you pull 40 void, I mean, it's just hard to get 40 void shards, but you're going to miss, let me see, 8% of 40. I could probably work that out if I just use my brain, but we're going to just do this. You're going to miss out on 3.2 epics, right? Let's call it 3 epics. Let's underplay it a bit. You're going to miss out on 3 epics, random epics, if you pull for this guy. For me, I think for recommending this for most players, it's just too much. It's just too much. You're going to lose out on too much. Void epics are too good for you to miss out on that many. Like if I think about people missing out on Ursula the Mourner, who's an absolute amazing champion for Hydra. Okay, the high elves aren't that good. Andrisia is quite good though. But like, you know, missing out on Sacred Order's got nuts ones. Shamael, Godseeker, Cardinal. These are all so useful. In Barbarians, you've got Skytouch Shaman, who's amazing. Like there's a ton of really, really good Orcs, Seer, of really good Void epics. Tons of them. And you don't really want to miss out. And you're going to miss out on 3 random ones. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty big thing to give up. The interesting thing, like I said, is you got the 10x going on right now with Maneater. And I think that makes it a bit more palatable. Like if I'm a newer player, especially if I'm free to play, it's always a really difficult decision. You have to really think about it and weigh the risks yourselves. You don't have to make this decision straight away. You can bide your time over the weekend before you make that decision. If you're a spender who's new to the game, it's a pretty decent time to pull. A Chemtum is going to be decent for you, quite good for Hydra progression. If you get a Maneater early, if you're willing to buy those Void Shards, it makes a big difference. Now, I don't really recommend spending money. I recommend playing more free to play. But of course, it's just something that's worth noting and how it affects your decision-making process. It's a tough one. I think 40 Void Shards for an epic is by far the most expensive we've seen. I do not like it. I think it's very bad. Yeah, I just think it's bad. You're giving up a lot of epics, and Void Shards are so hard to get. I think generally speaking, for someone to have 40 Void Shards, that's the amount of time. Basically, I can tell you from working this out, right? Between every 2x Void event, so there's 6 weeks between every particular 2x event. So 6 weeks from a 2x Void to a 2x Void. As an end game free-to-play person, so getting every single Void Shard that it is possible to get free-to-play in those 6 weeks, every single one, and being pretty lucky in Clan Boss, 40 is kind of like you got extra lucky, you got a few more. It's typically more like 35 to 40 or something like that. I would say 6 weeks of getting everything end game. And of course, if you're late game, early game, mid game, but you know, you're going to get way less than that. So it's a ton of Void Shards. There's my thoughts. So anyway, you can check out the video on him if you want. Lots of news here. I wanted to break it down and give you guys some good guidance so that you have a pretty detailed walkthrough here. Like I said, I'll be on tomorrow pulling my shards for Summon Rush. We'll see how many points it is. Yeah, I mean, considering the 10x Maneater, you could definitely do a few Void Shards. Would be my inclination if Maneater would open up Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss for you. It's a big risk, but it might be worth it. But look, I'll talk more about that tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. What are you planning to do? Can definitely help people out. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.